Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nina Boski, and I am what you call a life, business, and media coach and creator and producer myself. I've been in business many, many years, but what I want to really say about myself and around this energy of her story, I love women and I love supporting women. You can see that lovely woman in the back, Marilyn Monroe. I'll talk about her in just a few minutes. But I want to give you a little highlight into who I am. So I am originally from Northern California, and from an early age, I wanted to be in media, and I knew it. So at a young age, I moved from Northern California to Southern California. And at the age of at 17, when I was still in Northern California, I became a disc jockey. But when I moved to Southern California, went to school and had an internship and became a full-time disc jockey at 19 years old. And that's really unheard of in Los Angeles because you have to kind of work your way up into the market. But one of the things I learned in my media journey, it's not what you know, it's who you know, especially in media and contacts. So what I did in my journey is I spent many years, without going into my whole history, from radio to fast forward, here we are doing a podcast in the ability to do this in our own home. Back in the day, you used to have to go into a studio and you used to have to communicate in a way that, you had a engineer, a producer, etc. So here is a much more, easier way of being able to communicate to hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people. So my background in media goes from all the way from a disc jockey, all the way to podcasting, to advertising, to creating video content, to hosting my own television show, to interviewing back in the day celebrities, and really being able to get people to think about their life through movies. And so that was kind of my entree into transformation. So if you look at my story, I think one of the things that I do today is I look at myself, whether I'm in media or I'm dealing with somebody one-on-one, it's all about transformation. And how are we contributing to the bigger impact in this world right now, particularly this world? Look at the last 4 or 5 years we've all been in. So my media journey took me to starting my own company called Life Bites Global. And you can always go to lifebites.com to learn more about that. But I shifted from entertainment and media and just entertainment shows to something that has more meaning. And I had a property sent to me, which was a feature film around Marilyn Monroe. And at that time, I had no idea who she was. And I spent a majority of my career in media either working with movies in terms of marketing or promoting them in little interstitials. So this is the first time somebody wanted funding from me. Well, marketing a movie, you're at the end of the cycle, and the funding of a movie is a completely different, kind of animal. So the cool thing about that is, even though it started as an entertainment feature coming to me, which I had to dive in and really learn how do you fund a movie, right? And that, boy, was that a learning experience. And if we had about 4 hours, I could tell you a whole day. I could tell you some of the wild stories in wacky Hollywood. Up until that point, it was pretty straightforward. When people would say, "Oh, those Hollywood people," I'd say, "Oh, no, it's pretty much like a business." Not until you are funding a movie. So the transformational, though, part of the Maryland property, and I'm involved in it right now, is there is a feature film, there is a documentary, and then there is also a very popular podcast that has about 2 million downloads. And I have to tell you, it has done extremely well. So Marilyn's birthday will be in 2026. She's going to be turning 100 years old. So one of my big initiatives is to take all 3 of these projects, a feature film that deals with the last 3 days of Marilyn Monroe's life. And boy, is it a twister, and it's fun, but it blends fact and fiction. So it's not a biography of her. And then we have a documentary that deals with mental health and addiction and the correlation between the two. And I have to say, there's the transformational aspect when I started my company. And then we also have the podcast that's a combination of both a dramatic and also the investigative, really dealing on the mental health and addiction aspect of it. And if you think about our world today, back in 1962, which was Marilyn Monroe's era, it was very significant back then. But today, even though we have so many resources, it's in epidemic proportions. So something's not connecting. So my work over the last almost 25 years now, I started Life Bites in 2000, has been about life, business, and media. And so my work today is working with entrepreneurs, a lot of women as well, but also companies, and working with them to become their highest potential, whether it's a company that wants to grow or there's an individual or a team that wants to grow. But my whole goal here is to create an impact in this world. And let me give you a insight into why I do what I do. It's not something that I thought about. It's something that I couldn't help but do. And it was in me from the time I was in 4th grade. I had my friends at the time say, "Nina, you should be a counselor." When I was a disc jockey, when I was 17 years old, I was telling people to believe in themselves. I had no idea really what that meant at 17 years old, but there was something in my soul that knew that I was going to be helping people and helping make an impact in this world, whether it's in my own little world or if I'm in media, I'm dealing with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So my work was really clear innately, but I didn't really get it until even when I started my company back in 2000, Life Bites was still about getting people to think about their lives, but I hadn't really integrated until social media really started to take off. I took my life and business coaching, and then I took my media experiences and I blend them. So it really doesn't matter who the audience is. It's all about getting people to wake up to their lives. And one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm working with organizations. Pre-pandemic, emotional intelligence was probably one of the most critical skill sets anybody could have, because they talk about how, in the last, 20 years, IQ after a while starts to level off. And so unless you're in a highly skilled position, it's your EQ, your ability to manage your emotions and that of others, that really allows you to excel. So in my work, I use a lot of East meets West techniques because I like to look at the whole person. And if you think about, her story, which is my story right now, and I'm talking to you, whether it's Marilyn Monroe's, my story, or your story, it's all about how can I live my best life? And one of the things, because we're at the beginning of the year, we all know at this point, New Year's resolutions are not very effective. because they're talking about what you're going to do. One of the things that I like to bring to the table and what makes me, I would say, different or more holistic is that I say, what energy are you going to bring to the new year? What experiences do you want to create in the new year? Because when I think about the new year, I think about how am I going to show up? So this is an example I'd love to give you. If, let's say, I want to lose 40 pounds, and I come into the new year saying I'm going to lose 40 pounds, but my mindset feels depressed or I feel like I'm not good enough. Do you see how the energy I'm bringing to that goal may be offset by the fact that my energy isn't quite in alignment? So a lot of my work with people is getting your energy in alignment so that when you go to do the goal, it becomes much more attainable versus I'm going to set a New Year's resolution and I'm not fitting or matching what I'm saying. So that's a really powerful one. In regards to my story as well, one of the things that I think that I can offer when I first started my company in January of 2000. So January of 2000 is January 20th, 2000. And I was set to partner at the time with a company called ivillageandwomen.com. I had a lot of lawyers around my table telling me what I need to do. And I created this big company. I had employees. And then on March 17th, 2000, the internet crashed. Ouch. So here was the thing. A lot of people were just throwing money at the internet. And that was kind of what happened to me at the time. The challenge is it wasn't just a money-making idea. It was my passion. It's who I am. A mentor of mine said to me, Nina, I don't think you could, healing and breathing are like one and the same in you. So it was, like I said, innate in me. So when it crashed, by May of that year, iVillage was going out of business. And by August, I had to let go of my employees. And I have to tell you, I had to reinvent, become more resilient to taking a very big fall and making it a very big comeback. And let me tell you, from that experience, I'm going to say that really helped me, and it helps me help my clients today, because you cannot have true success without falling. And sometimes, hopefully not as hard as I did, but falling only makes that you can fall better when you become successful. There you go.
Wow, what an incredible story and journey you've been on. So many life lessons too along the way. So let's see if we can unpack your story.
Okay.
So what was the inspiration behind Life Bites Global?
Mm-hmm.
And how has this company evolved since its inception?
That's a great question. The Life Bites journey and how it came about is I was always getting people to think about their life. So when I was in radio and even on television, I was always trying to find something that had a deeper meaning instead of kind of the skim over entertainment pieces, right? And so at the time, my agent said, oh my gosh, they're doing this new television show. It was from John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and they're not going to use psychologists. Nina, you need to get back on the air. And at the time I was working for a television network, and I'm like, what do you mean get on the air? And he goes, yeah, get on the air and just do a psychology show. I'm like, oh yeah, let me just do a psychology show. Right. And so I said, okay, what can I do? And I'm like, and then, maybe you could write a book. And I'm thinking, write a book. I'm like, no, I can't write a book right now. Like, let me see what I can do. But I came up with a concept. Reality Bites was just really popular. And this is a card right now that I have, but they're in little canisters. And so I don't have my canister around here, but they're little Life Bite cards that I came up with. And they got people thinking about their life, because that's really what I started to, what do I do? I question people. And I kind of came out of the womb questioning, right? And so it's kind of like, why do people do what they do? So when I started Life Bites, it was little bites of life that I was going to have on radio, television, in theater, in store, little bites of life that get people thinking about their life. So that was the initial inspiration.
And it's interesting because when you chunk life down into little bite-sized chunks, is when you see it clearly.
Yes. Yes.
If you look at the big picture, you don't really see where you're at.
Well, and also, I think especially even more so now than in 2000, think about how much information we have coming at us each and every day, right? And so if you can't make it simple, people are just going to go, you know what, I don't have time for it. So sometimes just a question or a thought, you don't have to hit people over the head with it, but just to break it down in a simplistic way can get people some room to really think about their life and what inspires them as well.
Now, I'm intrigued with your background in media. You have a rich history in media, including pioneering a digital TV show on
Yes.
YouTube. How do you see the role of media in driving personal transformation?
I don't mean to laugh. I just think the world of media, just to give you a little insight, when I was graduating from college, my journalism dean was not so happy that I was a radio, quote, disc jockey at the time. We have real journalists here, right?
Right.
And I don't know if he's still around today, but I'm going to tell you, man, he would be just up in arms of how mass media has changed and shifted to a point where, it needs an up leveling. So transformation needs to happen on the ground roots of media, really and truly, because all of us are, what we're doing is we're giving our opinion in the news and media today. And because of social media and the algorithms, we're getting different completely, we're living in completely different worlds. I don't think
Yeah.
that's healthy, from that perspective. But from my perspective in where the world is going, we need to get people waking up in media. And I'll tell
Mm,
you why, because if you watch a news channel or watch people debating each other and they have different views, we don't talk
yes.
from a place of emotional intelligence. What we do is say, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. And all we do is loop around. So transformation to me needs to come that we all need to level up in these types of stories and talk from
Mhm.
more of our adult selves versus our child self.
Let's talk about the Marilyn Monroe projects. Your work includes a podcast, a doco-series, a feature film. What
Yes.
drew you to Marilyn's story, and how do you connect her legacy to mental health and addiction awareness?
Yeah, that's a really great question too, because I think the unfortunate thing with Marilyn Monroe, including myself at the time, I did not have a lot of fascination with her, to be quite honest. I thought
Okay.
I didn't have what's the word for it? I didn't think that she was, I didn't have a bad affiliation with her, but I didn't say, oh my God, I'm going to be involved with a three project entertainment, situation with Marilyn for the last, probably 5 to 7, since almost 10 years now that we started this with the podcast and the feature film. So Marilyn has gone through some evolving. So a lot of times people have an idea. I did not write the script of Marilyn. It came to me. And so what happened was, is I was intrigued by it, and like many people, intrigued by her story. But when I first, started doing the initial podcast, which was Goodnight Marilyn, and Marilyn, the feature film is called Goodnight Marilyn, and it's around the last 3 days of her life, and it really embodies the soul and the essence of who she is, with
Mm,
very factual things that were happening. But there's two fictional characters that go in and out of this story. And the fun thing about this story, or the fascinating thing about this story, is it's really, you could apply it to your own life. We all have big dreams. It doesn't matter if you're an actor, an actress, or a writer, or a director. You could be in any industry. We all have a dream.
yeah.
And in this movie, because it's a thriller noir, it really begs the question, and it asks the viewer, how far would you go for your dream? Because everybody's dream in this movie is being threatened, including Marilyn Monroe's. So it's really fascinating. So how I got involved was it came to me and then it just went like wildfire. And then we lost our funding on the feature film that was going to Cannes and everything. And then boom, without giving into all the gory details. That's why I said funding a movie is very different. And then I started the podcast. And this is where the transformation of entertainment and what I really wanted to do in this story, because even for myself, I was like, why am I so fascinated by this story, right? It can't be just about the death of her. What I found her to be is extremely intelligent, which she doesn't come across as a screen. I mean, she is definitely a ferocious reader, but she was also one that was really working on herself and wanting to transform. And her story intrigued me. But what intrigued me more is the lies that were being told about her that to this very day, people think are true. And so when you look at her own mental health, she definitely has a legacy of family history of mental health. She herself had a lot of mental health issues, and that certainly contributed to her death.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. So what key lessons or messages do you hope audiences will take away from your Marilyn Monroe project?
Oh, I love that question. That's a great question because I don't get asked that question even when they're going into the mental health. I really want there to be a message of hope. And I'm asked to talk in mental health conferences and retreats, all around the country, talking about the Marilyn Monroe story. But how I talk about it is from a place of hope. But I also want to tell people that sometimes it does end in tragedy. But here's the thing. This woman packed in one life at 36 years old, where some people they won't even achieve that until, if they live here, until they're 96 years old. And so when you think about how much she lived in those 36 years and how much she achieved based on her upbringing alone, some people wouldn't even be able to get out of bed, let alone achieve the heights of stardom and really talent that she actually had. So it's really one of, use her story to motivate you that if she can do it, you can do it too, and get the resources to be able to transform your life, not leave this world in tragedy like she did.
Yeah, it was a tragedy the way she died, but she did live her life to the full and achieved quite a lot while she was at. So
she really
with so many, sorry?
No, she really did. So,
So with so many Marilyn-related initiatives, how do you balance creativity with the challenges of bringing these projects to fruition?
The Marilyn Monroe story is really a metaphor for what's happening in life right now. If you take her story, and there's been so many lies and rumors told about her over the last 60 years, and you think about what's coming out in the world today, all of a sudden in Hollywood, oh my gosh, this is coming to light, right? People that you thought were this way are really that way. And I think one of the things, I think every project has its time. And I think that even though I was, honking the horn going, hey, let the truth be known as it relates to Marilyn Monroe, I don't think they wanted to believe in the fantasy and the whodunit versus the realities of really most definitely what happened to her. I'm not saying, I can't tell you for sure that something more nefarious happened with her, but I will say this, that her mental illness and her doctors had a lot more to play in her death than anybody's ever heard about. And that would be something that I'd love to bring to light, especially in today's age where so many things are coming out in the world that have been hidden for decades. Look at even the JFK tapes,
Yeah.
In here in the United States, they're talking about releasing the JFK and the RFK tapes, or in the files, not the tapes, but the files. So if you were to think about those files finally being released, where so many have been, hidden for so many years, it's almost the same story, just a different life that we're talking about. It's bringing the truth to light. And wouldn't that be wonderful?
Now let's talk about coaching and leadership.
Yeah.
Your coaching blends Eastern and Western philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on how this dual approach benefits your clients?
Yeah, when I first started, I was definitely into the Eastern philosophy myself. So really learning about my own energy. At the time, we didn't really call it emotional intelligence, although emotional intelligence has been around for decades now. It really didn't get its momentum to about 10 years ago. And so when you think about it today, emotional intelligence is really, in a nutshell, the ability to manage my own emotions and that of others. It really kind of raises my level to be able to communicate in a way that is from the adult self versus the child self that's reactionary, right? And so if I become more self-aware, and then I can be aware of other people relationally and socially, then I'll be able to manage my relationships better. What has happened over the last probably 5 years more ineptly or more dynamically is we're here in front of a screen. Most of us now are in a hybrid or remote environment, and then we're being asked to actually work. The problem with that is that if you look at in the early 2000s, about the mid 2000s, the ex-CEO of Google said that we process in a 48-hour period as much information as we did from the dawn of time, 2002. Okay. So now that was in the mid 2000s before social media really took effect. In 2017, the University of San Diego came with a study and that said that in a 24-hour period, we are processing 35 gigabytes of information a day, basically. And so then you think about that and you go, okay, what does that mean? It means if I was a laptop, within a week, I would crash. So what does that mean now? That means I have to learn how to manage the amount of information that's coming at me. And I have to decipher, is this me? What is true? What isn't true? How do I want to show up in the world? What do I want to achieve? And so it's almost become a necessity where before it was kind of like a woo-woo thing. Now it's like, oh my gosh, Nina, how do I balance my life in today's demands? So it's been, and also, where my work is shifting this year, which is a little different for me. I do something called Mindful Mondays, which gets people to learn how to ground and tune into their own energy. And they're really great for people that are type A personalities that can't just go home and just not think about something. Gives you something to think about in a visualization. But also becoming more soulful. And when I say the word spiritual, I don't mean in the religious sense. I mean in the purpose sense. I think that with all this technology and AI coming down the pike, we have lost our sense of connection and most of all our hearts. One of these Life Bite cards says that we all know that technology can surpass humanity. But the real question is, can humanity surpass or come into alignment with technology? And I would say we've got a ways to go to catch up and come into balance, heart to heart. We've lost that over the last 3, 4, 5 years. I can speak here in the United States. There's such a division, and we have this I'm right, you're wrong energy. And none of us will be able to evolve if we don't start to seek to understand each other.
Now, your work often inspires personal growth and balance. How do you see your role in empowering the next generation of leaders?
That's a great question. I think there's so many. When I look at my younger colleagues that are just, when I say just getting into this business, meaning they're young in their business, model, their wisdom is so there. I mean, it's just wonderful to see these very young, they're either young in age, but probably not young in soul. They're coming in with this information that, man, I didn't have that information when I was that young. And so I think that part of it is this younger generation, they're going to have to learn how to manage their energy in a way and the dynamics that are happening in this world at a very fast rate than I did when I was coming into this world. When I was coming into this world, I'm going to tell you, I mean, it was easier to manage your energy because you didn't have all this energy coming at you. Today's world is very different. But I think this legacy that I know for myself that I'd like to leave is that, kind of what I'm talking about with the heart. I think the next generation leader, if we are building things that are not about the collective, then I think we're kind of getting away from our soul mission here on earth. And I don't know if the earth, to be quite honest with you, will make it if it's all about greed and power and just developing myself. So I think the next step leader will have to really keep that in mind.
Now, my last two questions are a bit of a time experiment. First question, I am going to teleport you back. And we are going to go and have a conversation with the younger you. The young woman who went into the world of media, was ambitious, had drive, but didn't quite know how to navigate the space. If you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
That's a beautiful question. So one of my first nuggets that I would give somebody if I were to be talking to my old self. Wait a minute, let me repeat that just for a second. So we'll cut that one out. So one of the things that I would like to tell my younger self is don't ever ask somebody else for permission to succeed. I think that's one of the things that I use today is there was a lot of times in my younger self that I needed the validation. And if I would have trusted my instincts, I would have known that that was where my soul was calling me to do. So even at, 18, 19 years old, when I was telling people to believe in themselves on the radio, I would have been paying attention to that a little bit more instead of having to fit me into somebody else's, kind of idea of who I should be. The other one is really about trusting your gut. And I think that comes sometimes in time because you have to get to know yourself. But that would be the second thing that I would say is to trust your gut. And for me personally, it's okay to slow down, to speed up. I think because I'm such an idea girl and I love to jump in and create, I would probably be a little bit more reflective and making sure that what I am doing is actually what I want to be doing. And the reason why I say that is because my company, when I started it, everybody else wanted it to go, it was being positioned to go public. So it was going to be a huge company. I didn't want that kind of company. I just wanted to help people. So when I think about that and when the internet crashed, really being able to tune in and slow down in order to speed up. And entrepreneurs, for a lot of reasons, because they're visionaries, they need to really be able to hone that craft to be able to slow down and integrate both the methodical as well as the visionary aspects of their dream. So those would be the 3 things that I would say.
Last question, I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and have a conversation with the older you. And she's 80 years old. She's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, her dogs, her cats, whoever's with you at the end. If I could teleport you into the future to go and have a conversation with this wise woman who's led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
That's a great question. Wow, that's a profound question at 80 years old, being able to be with my now older self. I think one of the things I would say to her is, wow, girl, you've made an impact, whether it was with one person or hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. But I've done well in the sense that I came to achieve my mission. And my mission is to allow people to connect to their hearts and to transform. And if I could keep it that simple, I would say, job well done.
Beautiful end to our interview. Thank you so much, Nina, for coming online and sharing your incredible story with us.
Oh, thank you. This has been a delight, and your questions were profound and wonderful. And I'd love to be able to support you in your journey as well with her story. And this is great. What a wonderful, fascinating time I've had with you. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, to empower you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And Nina, thanks again for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep